Hello and welcome to our first annual State of the Script. My name is Arun Nagarajan. I'm joined here by our esteemed product manager, Saurabh Gupta. This is our first annual State of the Script, and those of you that are joining in from the United States, you'll know the reference. Today is the State of the Union. The President delivers annually, and we're trying to preempt him by giving the State of the Script ahead of time. And we're pretty excited. A lot of good questions rolling in on moderator. We're going to be watching it. I have a few questions that I'm going to ask Saurabh, and we'll get started. So
thank you, Arun, for having me, and thanks everyone for watching this.
Yes, welcome to our new studios.
Yeah, it's great here.
Yes,
it's amazing. Yeah,
shiny new studios,
It is.
and we're pretty excited. Very fancy setup and good lighting and everything. So before we get started, you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm Saurabh Gupta. I'm product manager for Google Apps Script. I work very closely with Arun and the rest of the team to make AppScript as awesome as possible for you. Excellent.
So I think a lot of folks have an understanding of what a product manager does, but for everybody's sake, can you explain a little bit about what a product manager does? Are you writing code all day? Are you on the phone with customers all day? What is it that a product manager does?
So it's interesting question actually. So there's a long answer and there's a short answer. So short answer is anything that engineers or you guys won't do, like our esteemed developer relation folks won't do, is what a product manager will do. But a long answer is that a little bit of everything. But most important job of a product manager is to steer AppScript in a direction where it's most useful and it aligns with overall Google App strategy. And it is a useful product for developers, and we are taking care of pain points and making sure that things just work and they are right and they are on right path.
Got it. So when something's not going right, it's your fault.
Yes, absolutely.
I kid. And also, okay, and then my bottle's in the way here. Let me get that out of the way. So you also had an interesting background. You were in developer relations before you became a product manager, so you know a lot about what we do as well.
Absolutely, and I think for a developer product like AppScript, it is absolutely critical that we have a very diverse set of skills in our team. So we do not only need great engineers who actually build the product, but we also need great developer advocates and great developer programs engineers and a good product manager, I hope, to make this product successful, because it's not just enough to throw a bunch of APIs out there.
Right.
You got to be able to articulate the vision. You got to be able to guide. You got to be able to have developers focus on how to use the APIs the best way and all of that. So yeah, it's really important that we have good support for developers, and that's where developer relations come in, and that's where I came in, and that's how I joined. When I joined Google, I joined in developer relations, and that's how I transitioned from developer relations to product manager role.
So all you that are listening in, he understands your pain. He was
absolutely.
He had to deal with
absolutely.
Yes,
Yep.
So it's really good. And I'm just conversing with Saurabh, I know that when I explain our partners or developers or customers that are running into issues, he's able to quickly understand it and not just look at it from features from an end user perspective. So
absolutely.
So I think we're in good hands there. So now that we know a little bit about you, tell us about the State of Script. 2013.
So if I be very presidential-like, I'll say State of Script is strong. But yes, we have launched a few things over the past year. The last Google I/O, if you remember, we launched a few major things. HTML service was one of them. ScriptDB was one of them. We launched the standalone script editor, a new way of doing web apps. So we launched a lot of things, and we spent last 6 months post I/O making sure that we iterate on whatever we launched at I/O. So that's what we have done. We have launched a few things along the way as well, and there's more to come. But overall, our users are very excited. Google Docs users, Drive users, App, Gmail users, Calendar users are very excited about interesting things that can be built using AppScript. So I think that there is a very, very strong interest there, both on the consumer side and the enterprise user side. So that way we are very strong.
That's great. Yeah, and can you talk a little bit about some of the favorite things that we've launched in 2012? I know you already listed a few things. Are there a few that kind of?
So the first thing that is my favorite is HTML service, and the reason why it's favorite is because it just gives you raw power of JavaScript, HTML, CSS into your web apps. Like if you remember before,
on the client side.
On the client side, yes.
Yeah.
Like if you remember with UI app, the service that we had, you could only stitch UI together on the server side and then it moved to client side, right? But with HTML service, now you can do the web apps the way you have been doing it, which is using JavaScript, HTML, CSS, jQuery. So this is one of my really favorite things. Standalone script editor is another big thing for me, because if I need to just write a script, I go to script.google.com and that's it, right? And this was such a pain point for developers, because now before script editor existed in Drive, you had to go to spreadsheet and if you remember,
I remember the
tools and script editor, and that was like a weird way of writing web apps.
Right.
But so those are the two of my favorite things. Yep.
Yeah, those are really good ones. Those are pretty big and important ones that I use every day. So I'm pretty excited. What are some of the now, part of State of the Script is looking ahead a little bit. So looking ahead in 2013, what are some of the big philosophical things we're working on? What are some of the sort of the little things but have big impact? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Right. Yes. Lots more new interesting stuff to come in 2013. One of the things that we do want to solve as a pain point is making scripts easier to execute, making scripts easier to package, making scripts easier to distribute. I think that's really one of the big pain points that we want to solve. So which is, for example, if you create something awesome, whether it's a script in a spreadsheet or as a web app, you just want to package it, make it easily available to end users. And today it's a little hard. Like we have a script gallery and you publish something to a script gallery, but it should be a much easier, smoother process for both you as a developer and your users. So we are really working very hard on that.
That's a really important point, right? Because today, when I write a great script, I find it very easy for me to test it on myself.
Right.
But then when I wanted to send it to you, I have to either send you the source code or package it up in a spreadsheet as a copy and have you copy it up. So I think a lot of folks that are listening in will be very excited about that. So stay tuned for more on that. Other things that may make sense for the developers?
Yep. So one of the outstanding requests is why do we just have scripts in spreadsheet and sites, right? So there will be good news on that front as well, because we want to treat all Google Docs properties equal, right? We want sheets and slides and docs are on equal footing, right? So we don't want to just give special treatment to spreadsheets, right? So there will be some good news on that front. Another thing that to look forward to is the overall end user experience, and as part of that end user experience is the authorization flow, right? Arun, you remember the ugly dialogue that comes up, right, whenever an authorization is required? We want to fix that so that it's not scary. It's not. It's today, if you give a script to a user, you get an authorization dialog, which is like, oh my God, what is this? And then you click on it, then there's another one. You can close it. There's quite a few hoops that the users have to jump to to use your scripts, right? We want to make that simple, easy, and painless. So that's happening. Also, there are a whole bunch of other Google APIs out there, right, that are not available through AppScript, and we are going to make more of these APIs available in Google API services. If you look at that category, there are 4 or 5 today, and that list is going to grow. So that whole experience is going to change a little bit as well, and for the better. And
when you say other Google APIs, you mean things like Google+, YouTube, the whole set of services that we provide outside of apps.
Absolutely, yeah. So today we have like default services category and then Google APIs category. And default services are like native services that are sort of baked into AppScript, right? This is our foundation, right? But then there are a whole bunch of other Google APIs, right? And you have to go to Google API console to turn them on and all of that kind of stuff, right? And so you've probably always wondered like, hey, why can't I use those APIs from AppScript, right? And and today you can a few like analytics, AdSense, BigQuery, stuff like that,
Prediction,
right?
yeah.
And prediction. So we want to expand that roster.
Good, excellent. That I know that's going to be welcome news for a lot of folks that are trying to build more automation around YouTube reporting, more awareness of their Google Plus stream and things like that. That's very exciting. So when you talked about all the different apps, I noticed that you didn't talk about forms. And in fact, there's actually a question around that, and I'll actually jump to our moderator here. Are Googlers working on a forms class? With the new forms, there seems to be much more potential for dealing with existing forms and underlying data without having to create new UIs. It seems like this person, Michael, is picking up on some interesting hints.
That's right. I thought I'll keep it a surprise.
Sorry to break a surprise. Sorry.
Yeah, but again, forms is a first-class Google Drive app, right? So like we don't want to leave any app behind, right? We want spreadsheets and sites are where we are right now. We are looking at others, and form is certainly one such. And so stay tuned for the good news.
Yeah, very good question, and certainly we'll continue monitoring moderator for such questions. So you mentioned a lot of these services, default services you call them, right? So these are everything from cache service to document app and so on. What is your favorite?
So before I jump on to my favorite, I want to also sort of separate the wheat from the chaff a little bit. So if you look at default services, like we have a whole bunch of different services in default, right? But I would like you to think of organize default services into these models. So the first is sort of like the big five, if you will, right? Like we have like spreadsheet service, we have Drive service, we have Gmail, we have calendar, and we have document, right? So you should think of these five as like really the big important services, right? Then we have other important services like URL fetch and UI app and HTML service, which sort of is part of the platform, less an API-ish type thing, but more part of the platform, right? Then we have the third category, which is the experimental services. A lot of these are experimental, right? And we have never thought of creating a separate category of experimental, but sort of try things out, and if they work, then graduate them. If not, then keep it more open for suggestions and feedback and stuff like that. So when you think of default service, think of that. Now going back to your question about what are some of my favorite ones, right? I would say Gmail app is certainly one of my favorite. So there's a very famous script out there called Gmail Meter.
Yeah.
I have it installed on my Gmail account, my wife's Gmail account, my Google account for my work, and I know a ton of other people who have it. And it's almost always a pleasant surprise, like on the first of every month, that I get a nice little email giving me stats of my inbox. And it's a good window into what's going on in the past month. So that's one of my favorite ones. I like the Drive one as well. It's quite it's pretty interesting. And HTML service, I really like it because now I can use jQuery and create some interesting web apps and stuff like that.
Cool, good. I really like the I think spreadsheet app is one of my favorites. I think the fact that you can inject a menu or run a script off of a button, I think you can do just so much. Spreadsheets happen to be such a natural user interface for a lot of folks that we work with. So that's good. Everybody's got to have a little favorite. That's great. So, when one of the things I've realized just looking at our AppScript usage internally is that we are pretty avid users of AppScript ourselves. Internally we use it for progress tracking, welcoming new folks into teams. I know a lot of interesting use cases. Can you talk a little bit about the internal usage a little bit?
Absolutely. So one of the founding principles of AppScript was to make automation a lot simpler and easier, right? That's how we started. That's how AppScript as a product got started, right? So and we need automations in different ways. It's not just automation in a spreadsheet here where you can do different things in a spreadsheet, but it is automation around a bunch of other stuff. Like for example, when we are about to launch stuff, right? There's stuff on that we use with calendar and with spreadsheet and all of that other stuff. So there is a quite a good considerable use case within Google using calendar and spreadsheets together, right? That's a big one. I just mentioned Gmail and spreadsheet and Gmail and Drive, like with Gmail Meter. Gmail Meter is a pretty popular one as well. Other things that we do a lot of custom mail merge type applications, right? Like, hey, if you want to send out like say 200 emails or something, AppScript is perfect for that. You write up a doc and then you just send out emails and things like that. So it's pretty interesting that way as well. There's a lot of reporting and dashboard stuff that happens using AppScript. Like for instance, we use that project web script that is available in the gallery, which gives you project tracking. We use that a lot, especially in our team, like to track stuff. So
gives you Gantt charts as well.
Exactly. So there is considerable usage around AppScript within Google and within Docs and Drive and all the other teams.
I would say it's more than dog fooding, right? I think we're actually using it for a real mission critical stuff in a lot of ways. So I'm actually pretty excited about that, and I think it gives us new ideas and make sure that our stuff's going to work for everybody, not just for the developers.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about as well was, you work with other product managers pretty closely. From your perspective, how does AppScript fit with the rest of the Google App strategy? And can you talk a little bit about how that guides our roadmap, our priorities?
Right. So AppScript is a developer product, right? And automation is our founding principle, but along with automation is tied another concept which is called extensibility, meaning Google apps are great. They can meet 99.99% of your requirements, maybe, or 99 or 98. You take the pick, but that extra 1% or 0.1% or 2% that you need to go to 100 or to meet your 100% of your use cases, you need some kind of customization, right? And as part of our core product offering, like for Docs or Drive or Gmail, we can't imagine and conceive every feature and stuff the product with every feature, right? So this is where AppScript comes in, which is you take a developer product and you extend it to extend Google Apps using AppScript to meet all of your requirements, right? To meet your 100% of your use cases. So our goal is automation, extensibility, and no use case left behind. That's where AppScript sort of fits in an overall apps strategy.
And that's actually should be music to all the developers' ears, right? That creates such a huge opportunity of products and software that they could build, provide additional services to the millions of users that apps brings in.
Absolutely, because every organization has different needs, right? I mean, if you work for a company, they have their own processes, they have their own workflow, they have their own tracking system and all that. So spreadsheet is such a foundational product, right? It's such a fundamental product. Drive is such a fundamental product. Gmail is such a fundamental product that you need to be able to extend these and meet your requirements. So that's where AppScript fits in.
That's great. That makes a lot of sense. So you're saying all the idea of AppScript is to cross-cut all the different apps that we have.
That's right.
And provide an extensibility and an automation story consistently.
Right.
And that combined with some of the deployment story you talked about, I think
absolutely.
Eventually.
So, that's where our focus is, as I said earlier, which is make it easier for developers to package their scripts and distribute them to an organization or to individuals or whoever. But it should be just simple and easy, and it should just work.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. So a couple of tough questions for you.
I love tough questions.
So we talked about a lot of the good things we're working on, a lot of the exciting thing that's coming up, the great 2012 we had. What are some of the challenges that you look at right now and we're working on that's kind of tough on us, and can you talk a little bit about that?
Right. Yeah. So there are quite a few challenges. we have a vast footprint when it comes to AppScript as an infrastructure, right? So we have like a script editor, we have a whole bunch of APIs, we have the AppScript runtime itself, we have the event infrastructure where you can get on edit and time. So there are quite the pieces to this whole machinery is just too many, right? We do a good job of making sure it's reliable and all of that, and and we want to make it even better and reliable for developers. So that's something that we focus on heavily, right? So that's the first thing. There are other challenges as well, in the sense that we have to pick and choose our features. I know you guys have so many feature requests out on our tracker, and you can just see the sheer volume of it, right? And there are chances that we may not be able to implement every one of those feature requests, and so we have to take a hard look at what is good, bad, or what is absolutely needed and what is not, and we have to make trade-offs, and these trade-offs are hard. Because I've been on this other side of the fence, and I know if I don't have a method on the API, it's infuriating, right? I mean, and to make these trade-offs, I mean, it's not easy. I mean, I know a lot of frustration on the tracker sometimes, which is, hey, how come this feature has not been implemented for X weeks or X months or whatever? And we look at it and we say, like, you know what, we have to choose our battles. So making sure that how you guys developers are happy, and not boiling over some of these things is another challenge for us, which is we want to meet your expectations and not piss you off, yet we want to pick our right battles and stuff.
Yep. But at the same time, we do appreciate your professional, well-noted comments in the issue tracker and your votes. So we do track that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can attest to that. So.
Oh yeah, the votes are absolutely important. I can't stress enough, which is the number of votes on the tracker for a given issue or feature request.
Especially with good use cases and sample code and scenarios where it's really important for you or your business.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
Good.
That's a great question. Actually.
Yeah, it's a lot of folks are asking some good questions here. I'll take one. This one's around performance, which is another thing that we're working on. AppScript gadgets take a long time to initially render in a Google site. Do you have any plans to speed up the execution?
Yes. The answer is a resounding yes. We are already playing with something that speeds up stuff. If you have developed something using HTML service, for example, and I'm taking an assumption here that it's HTML service, right? Then things are slow right now, like especially the first initial load times. And you and I have discussed this a lot, right? And we already have a solution for it. We are internally playing with one, and the good news is on the way.
That's great. So we're coming up on time here, just a couple of minutes. I wanted to ask you, what are some of the use cases and capabilities that you think there's a need in the vacuum that is a great opportunity for the community? You look at what's available and what's possible. What's that window like? What's that gap like? And what are some of the opportunities?
So I think there are quite a few services that developers can use, which are not being used as heavily as we would expect. So HTML service is one such, which is the quality of UI that you can build using HTML service is like leaps and bounds better than what you can do in UI app.
You get the full power of the browser.
Exactly. So I think I am expecting that more and more developers will leverage that and build some amazing use cases around it, right? Another thing that I think is not being leveraged as well is ability to publish web apps in Chrome Web Store, right? We launched this integration at Google I/O, and a lot of developers have used it, but I would expect a lot more, given the volume of web apps that are published out of our...
And the popularity of Chrome.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that is something that developers can use, because Chrome Web Store is a great distribution point, right? I mean, it's really easy to build awesome web apps and then just publish them in Chrome Web Store and then have that as a point of distribution. So I think that's something that is very useful. The third thing I think that could be used by developers is the web apps that run not as the publisher but as the user on the keyboard. I'm expecting more and more developers to leverage that capability as well.
Right, that's great. You get the user's data, which is so useful and applicable at that point. So we're coming up on time here, so we do want to wrap it up. Hopefully this was a really useful session for you. You got to see one of the brain trusts behind our product, really kind of give you the history, what our priorities are, some of the challenges, and the roadmap for 2013 and beyond. And hopefully this all made sense, and we look forward to your comments and questions, and we'll kind of find more ways to engage the product management team, the engineering team, and have this conversation going. Thank you very much, Saurabh.
Thank you for having me.
See you guys.